Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I would like to talk about a recent insight as I was reading a book by Lao Tzu, who is a famous teacher on Taoism or Tao, however you want to pronounce it. The argument proposed here is regarding the nature of knowledge. Okay? The argument is centrally focused to say that knowledge is always kind of in action. Okay? And as we will open it, you would see actually we would connect it with a lot of Krishnamurti's statement, which he has been saying. But Lao Tzu and Krishnamurti will maybe meet here. That as you gain some knowledge, then that very knowledge creates doubts. Okay? Now, before I finish the statement, I will first stay here up to this part of the statement and let's expand it a little bit. That knowledge itself can never be complete. What I mean about this is there is a huge amount of knowledge if you want to gather it in the whole universe. If I use the word infinite, it wouldn't be wrong. It wouldn't be wrong to say that there is infinite knowledge in the universe. You could gather knowledge about each electron, each fundamental particle from the particle table. There are billions of galaxies, stars, and there's just a lot of stuff in the universe. And to gather knowledge about everything is a very big task. And it's a lot of knowledge. So we can call it infinite. So as that much knowledge is not possible to be gathered, whatever we can gather is going to be incomplete, always. So out of that infinite knowledge of the universe, our brains or we in our lifetime can gather a very small fraction of it in comparison to whatever humanity has ever gathered since the last 100,000 years or whatever in the time of evolution, whatever time humans have lived. I think we've been able to gather a very small fraction of what the total knowledge is available in the universe. So, for a normal person living everyday life, knowledge is always limited, or knowledge is always incomplete. You don't have complete knowledge. With complete knowledge means there is nothing more left to know. You know everything. That's what we know. That's what we call completeness. Okay? You could have complete knowledge about certain topics, about certain subjects. You could have complete knowledge of the concept of addition, for example, how to add two numbers. You can say, my knowledge about this is complete and I can add any two numbers. Okay? So, this example itself gives us the hint or the perception that when knowledge is complete in a very small context, okay? In general, knowledge can never be complete, so that always stands. But even if we look at very small examples like the knowledge of division, I don't know, the knowledge of something, the knowledge of making pasta, for example, that could be a complete knowledge somewhat. So as long as knowledge is complete, it doesn't make you ask more questions, because you know that your knowledge is complete, and that itself creates a sense of satisfaction that, okay, I know this thing completely. I don't have to ask any more questions about this thing. Okay? So, complete knowledge creates a kind of satisfaction. Okay? But in general, as knowledge can never be complete from a bigger point of view, at smaller contexts, as we said, you could have complete knowledge in a very small area, in a very small zone. But in general, knowledge cannot be complete. There cannot be a complete knowledge about life, for example. You cannot have complete knowledge about whatever is going to happen with you in the future. And even your whole life, you don't remember all of it. We remember only specific instances. So, as knowledge is not complete, and then comes Lao Tzu's second statement, that it creates doubts in you. When you gather knowledge, you get the knowledge, and then that knowledge is feeling its limits. Okay? That knowledge feels that I only know up to this point, and after that, I do not know. And that very feeling creates a sense of curiosity, a sense of doubt that makes you want to ask more questions, that makes you want to investigate more. Which is why there's a very common statement you would hear people saying that humans are very curious, they want to know, our minds want to know. It's not because we are curious or something, it's just the nature of knowledge itself. Because humans live with knowledge. All our lives are based on knowledge. Our identity is based on knowledge. And it's inherent in the nature of knowledge that it would create more doubts, curiosity to know more. Because knowledge wants to feel completeness. Because completeness is a feeling of wholeness. And then it feels like a feeling of security, a feeling of secure, that yes. But because knowledge can never achieve completeness, it's always running behind completeness. And to do that, it has to gather more knowledge. Okay? So, knowledge is never complete, and that's why it creates doubts, and those doubts make you want to have more knowledge. And when you will have that more knowledge, that new knowledge that you will add to the old one will create its own sets of doubts, and then you will go to the next set of knowledge. And because the amount of knowledge is infinite in the universe, you would never finish this cycle. The cycle will keep going on. That knowledge creates doubts, gets more knowledge, creates new doubts, gets more knowledge, creates new sets of doubts, and it just keeps on. And if you look at it, okay, some of the statements start to become clear that knowledge is limited, which Krishnamurti has said a lot of times, which is visible here, that when you have knowledge, it has its limits, which is why it creates doubts and it wants to know more, and then create a new circle of knowledge, which will have its own limitations. And then, second, this whole cycle of incompleteness, then gathering more knowledge with curiosity or doubts, and then another incompleteness, and then so on. This is the cycle of time. And Krishnamurti has said many times that knowledge is time, as thought is time, because thought is based on knowledge. So he uses sometimes knowledge is time, and sometimes he says thought is time. So we can see that this very cycle of knowledge having its limit and then creating doubts, those doubts answering the answers with new knowledge, and that its own doubts. So this whole pattern is itself time. Okay? So knowledge is never complete. As long as you would rely on knowledge for completeness, you will always end up with sadness. Okay? Don't rely that knowledge can give you this sense of completeness, this sense of security, the sense of true happiness, if I can say that. Knowledge can give you momentarily happiness. What do I mean by momentarily happiness? Basically, pleasure. Pleasure is based on knowledge, and we have discussed it in our videos as well. If you haven't, you can check those out. So, knowledge can give you those bursts of small happiness moments like pleasures. But the true happiness, which knowledge itself desires inherently, and maybe it's unaware of it, is the happiness of feeling totally complete, that I'm complete, which can be rephrased as I'm enough because I'm complete. I don't need anything more, which can be again rephrased as I feel totally safe, I'm secure, which can be rephrased as I do not have fear. Okay? An entity which feels secure, which feels complete, which is not running after something, will also not feel fear. It wouldn't be afraid of it because it's already complete. Fear is usually the lackness of something or the fear of losing something. The fear of not achieving something or the fear of losing what I already have. I might lose my life. I might lose my property or whatever. But when you have this sense of completeness inside of you, this feeling of completeness, then it is a different kind of living, you can say. So this gives us the biggest insight into the whole process of living, that the thing we call life, okay? Now be very careful here with the words. We are not using life as it has been used by the great teachers, as Buddha would use the word life, or as Krishnamurti would use the word life. We are using life as we call it life, which is the everyday living, everyday events. This is what we call life. We join all our everyday events and then we could say, okay, all of this is together my life. So you can see that your life is nothing but this dance of memory. Because inherently, you are memory. You are this state of memory which feels unsatisfied and then asks more. It gathers more. In that gathering, it feels happy for a while because it has gathered. It feels a certain kind of improvement. And then it feels its limitation again. And then it desires again. It doubts again. It's curious again to want more, to know more. Okay? So, we are essentially knowledge. This whole body, this whole mind is a movement of knowledge. There is only knowledge which is living, which is doing what it does. And it's desperately looking for completion. Knowledge is scared to be incomplete. Okay? And to find completeness, it keeps on desiring, it keeps on doubting, it keeps on being curious, gathering more knowledge, more experience. Experience is also knowledge, you know. When you go through an experience of an ice cream or any kind of experience, you learn from it, you create a kind of knowledge from it. So, it wouldn't be wrong to say that we are knowledge. I know it sounds very drastic and very weird because our general perception is we are something special, different from the universe of matter. And we have this special thing called life. We have this specialness. But actually, there is just that movement of memory. And when I become totally memory, it also means that the whole matter is a movement of memory. So, it can be easily observed how you, as memory, seek completion. So, your identity, which you call identity, your name, your country, your caste, your this and that, your family name, and blah, 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 those just remain as tags, you know. And at the end, you see there's a perception that there is only this movement of knowledge. Knowledge seeking completion. Why it seeks completion? Because incompleteness is insecurity. And nothing wants to stay insecure in the universe, whether it's living or even matter itself tries to seek security in some sense, which is why matter reacts. Reaction itself is a sense of defense. When you hit a wall, the wall hits you back. That's also the wall trying to protect itself, but the wall can only do that much, because that's how the nature of that matter allows it. In our case, we can hit back, and we can talk back, and we can think back, and many other options are present. So, but essentially, it's all a movement of memory. And movement of memory is time. When memory or knowledge, if you don't want to use the word memory, when knowledge, which I am knowledge, see other knowledge, which is this universe around me, I experience time. Because I myself am in the process of time. I myself am moving all the time to seek completion. I myself gain new knowledge every day, then create new interests every day, new desires every day, new questions every day, and I expand my knowledge every day. But I totally fail to see that I can never have completion by this method, because I cannot have complete knowledge of everything. It's just too much knowledge in the universe. So then the question arises, is there another way to feel this completion? Because insecurity, incompletion, is not an illusion. We feel it inside of us because we are knowledge. So knowledge is standing at a moment where it sees that one way of becoming complete is to gather more knowledge, but that will never end because there is so much knowledge. And then knowledge asks itself, is there another way to feel complete? Because this method will never make me feel complete. My whole life will be gone and I would end up just in my incompleteness. And because people have failed that way, they have created this kind of perceptions about life, that life is a struggle, life is this, life is pain, life is this and that. So even the Buddha says it in that context, that when you live your life in the loop of knowledge, then life is definitely pain, because knowledge is never going to feel safe, complete, harmony, satisfied, this kind of security. So the question arises, is there other way of approaching it? Is there another way to achieve completeness? Because completeness seems to be our inherent demand. The knowledge itself demands that it wants to feel complete. It's like a non-equilibrium that desperately wants to come back to equilibrium. A spring that has been pulled so hard that it desperately wants to go back to its original state. Okay, so can we observe this in our life instead of understanding it as an idea and feeling a smile on the face and laughing about it and sharing it with our friends? Can you observe it every day, living that you are a movement of knowledge which is feeling incomplete, raising more doubts, raising more questions, and every time it expands itself, that is time. The movement of knowledge is time. Knowledge is limited, creates more doubts, another boundary, a bigger boundary, a bigger boundary. For some moments of happiness because of this expansion, and then it feels its limitation and it wants to overcome that again. Okay, I think we should stop here for today, and let's try to continue the other part of it. That is there a way of completion? Okay, let's see how we would approach it. And but the whole thing is, please attempt it. Again, I'm saying the whole point of our channel is based on experimentation. We are not believing in anything. We are proposing something, and then we request you, please try it. Please first observe it in your life, and then say, yes, the argument is true, or you can say, no, the argument is not true, whatever is the case. But yeah, so I would take my leave for today, and let's meet next time.